going on, guys? Today's gonna be a little bit of a different video, as you can already tell by the scenery. So, as you can see here, I built this entire board. It took me a very long time to put this together, but I put it together. It's everything that I've been able to find over the past 3 months cataloging as a content strategist. So, I'm gonna show you a little bit of it today, not the entire thing. That would take a little longer, but yeah, who is this for? So this video and everything that I offer is for, coach, a creator, a anybody who already sells something, whether it be some sort of product, a service, like a mentorship, a community, and it's not, you feel like you can get more out of it. You know what I mean? And your biggest issue there is it's not even anything about um your product's actually probably fine, to be honest with you. It's just a matter of if you have any eyeballs on it. That's the biggest thing that people run into. They don't have enough people looking at their offer. And you could be one of the way I do things is you have three content types. And you could have a lot of people who, look at that top of funnel kind of content, the daily content where it's just more personal brand-ish like, but you might not have anybody who's going through the middle of your page, where like the middle contents of your page, where things are more kind of like what I'm doing. If you don't sell anything, that's not a bad thing either. Most people don't know what to sell. So for me personally, that's kind of my expertise. I'm really good at creating an offer based off of everything that somebody does and all their content and their brand, and coming back to them with several ideas of how they can monetize what they've built. It's not a bad spot to be at. Um, it's not better than selling something already. I'd say both spots are pretty equal. And you don't need to have like a perfect niche. You don't need to do all that crazy stuff. It's a lot easier to build your offer because your audience will sort of tell you what you need to build. They'll pay for it based on, how they respond, and you just change things based on that. If you've ever posted and stopped for some period of time and then you stopped, and you thought that like, oh, it'll never work out, that's not true. You just got to keep pushing forward on it, and that's just kind of how most of these platforms work. It takes some time. Like for me personally right now, it takes a lot of time to film, and on top of that, it feels like nobody's um watching, which is fine. That it's going to happen eventually. You just got to keep going. So like for me, my consistency rate is trying to get one video out per week, usually at the end of the week. And oh, another thing is, if you have a hard time being told that you're wrong, I feel like then you're just not good at taking any advice. So, if you can't stay up to a consistent rhythm and you kind of just do whatever, you post willy-nilly, this isn't for you. If you don't even want to, make any money, that's not for you either, to be honest. And if you're not okay with, making conversation and all that stuff, you kind of need to get get okay with that. So if you're able to stay consistent, if you're able to do all of these things above, then you'll be fine. If any of these apply to you, you're going to be all right. And I think this video will be of value. And on top of that, if you are able to be consistent, you can push through the negativity that goes through your brain telling you to quit. Um, Usually that stops happening around 2 months in, 3 months in. So if you can make it past that point, the 90-day cut, you'll be fine. And oh, again, before we move on, it's very important that you understand this part right here. Um, Reading everything else that we talk about, everything that I talk about today, um, you need to look at it through that perspective, and I think then you'll see that whether or not it's worth it for you. So let's move on. So moving on to the first part, we're going to talk about attention. a good way to think of this is like drop shipping, right? Drop shipping versus traditional e-com. The best way I'm not experienced with it, but what I remember from when I was looking through things, e-com requires you to have the storage on hand to, you know, store the product. And I've heard stories of people spending thousands, millions of dollars on product, and they get to that part where they're ready to sell, but they don't have any people looking at their offer. They don't have anybody looking at their product. You know what I mean? So what's the point in spending all this money up front if you don't even have anybody looking at your stuff? As you can see, this is an example. Two creators here. Creator A has 40,000 followers who, check his content all the time to see what's next. And that sort of sells itself without even needing to do any kind of crazy CTAs or anything really clever. He kind of just tells people, hey, book below. People book and he gets money, right? But then creator B is 10 times, 100 times smaller, making his VSLs, his sales pages, and all these other things, wondering why everything's not working, when in reality, the main thing that they needed to look at was their content itself. So they could sell everything the same exact offer, same price, same promises, although I don't think promises are really that smart to put in your offers. Same delivery, everything's the same. The only thing that changes is like the quantity of people who saw it. Think of it as like a dartboard thing, The more people you have available to you, the higher percentage chance that you have of landing a sale. All of this gives us the real question of not is the offer good enough? Not the offer itself being good enough, because it very well likely is. It's a matter of where exactly are people falling off before they ever even arrive at the point of sale. So let's move on to that part. So as you can see here, this is essentially the entire map of fixing your issues. A creator's business, it's not only one aspect. There's 5 in my opinion. And they all stand next to each other in a line. Each one hands off to the next with, reach, which is our attention. It becomes interest, and then interest, it becomes a conversation. The conversation becomes a decision, and then the decision becomes the money. That's very important. And if any of those kind of are lost in translation or fall off somewhere at the end of the funnel, you get nothing. And the part that, costs people a lot of their time, which is kind of why I made this entire thing. The place where you feel the most pain is almost never exactly the place where the damage occurs. That's something that happens in medicine. Sometimes you have a pain up in your shoulder, but it's actually something in your knees. Some shit like that. You know what I mean? So it's not the root. What I'm trying to say is what's hurting, which might be the lack of funding, the lack of money, could be something that's all the way at the top, something completely different, which is essentially what this map is about. So let's talk about that. And I'm just going to kind of talk about what's not actually on this. So let's start at the first column. Are people even seeing what you're trying to offer? That's important. Do people even see your offer? So let's look at this. Your non-follower reach as a share of total views, not holistic views. That's what's important. This ratio right here, what I highlighted, this is what grows your account and gets more views. This is what really pushes your account out to people. And the higher this ratio is, that's kind of what helps you out. That's what will get you more potential buying viewers. You know what I mean? So a little bit why it's this number, the ratio, instead of just total views. I saw this one account and I looked at, the amount of views this person was getting. The number of views was just as many as their followers, if not less, on most of these videos. So I didn't really even need to do any more looking. I didn't even need to DM the guy asking for his analytics. I already knew what the problem was. which the problem was most of his followers were the only viewers. He got a few non-follower viewers, but not enough, not enough to grow the page. So like that, the posts, they're performing, you're getting a lot of people, but the actual business side of the account isn't performing. You know what I mean? The actual business itself isn't the thing that's performing. And that you have to separate the two. Think of your business as the back end and the content as the front end. The front end pulls everybody in, and then the back end, which is the business, it's kind of sitting on the sideline in a way where you pull everybody in with your content, but then they see, oh, this guy has something to offer. Let me click on the link, or let me book a call. And that's what really converts the people. It's you need the front end of the business, the store front, your content, to reel people in and walk up to the register and put their money in front of you. That's what you need to do. So let's move on to, whether these people actually stay. So a lot, you can already see a sort of pattern here. That's important. Do the viewers you gain, do the people you pull into the store, do they actually stay in the store? And this is one that matters as well. All of these things matter, but they work together. This is what I meant before, they pass off to each other. So once you get those new viewers, what's your average watch time look like compared to the entire length of your videos? How much do people actually sit through? And when you see that stuff, you see more, it tells you a lot without even needing to do any more analytics. Just the watch time alone can tell you a lot. If you have a 15-second video and at second 7, second 8, people drop off, what happened on second 9? Maybe what happened on second 6? You have to analyze the video and be like, all right, why did this fail? Why did the post before that get 15,000 views, but then the next post 7,000 views or 4,000 views? So that's what you got to get into the habit of breaking down your videos and watching them as a critic, not as a viewer. So the next part we're going to talk about is the turn, which is, do they do anything? Like, do your viewers actually do anything? Outside of just becoming a viewer, this is where your viewer becomes a potential buyer. They become an actual person. When you have viewers watching, they're just kind of passively sitting there, not doing much. But once you get people to start saving, they start leaving comments or searching through your profile, that's where you really get a lot of stuff happening. Those are tiny things that are conscious decisions by these viewers. That's when they become potential buyers. You know what I mean? And that decision can open up the opportunity to a relationship that a view never could. So depending on how many posts you have, if you have more than enough, I would say take the last 20 you've made and work out that number. So you would have to go through all of these, and then I would rank them by this ratio, by this sum. The sum of your saves, your comments, and profile visits. And honestly, that'll tell you enough about, what actually builds up your brand. What kind of posts do you post that actually build everything up? Double down on those types of posts. So when things fail like this, everything looks good until nothing happens. You know what I mean? You could have nice looking content. You could have 10,000 followers and get 10,000 views per video, but if nobody ever converts, you start to question, like, why is that the case? There's no CTA, essentially. There's no CTA. And that's a big issue. If your content's great, you should be not demanding. Don't ever demand. But you should be asking viewers to, hey, if any of this applied to you, you should book below type of thing. Things like that. So let's move on to the next part, the talk stage. So this is, again, our next ratio, the share of conversations that get past that first exchange. If they reached out, you replied, and then what happens after that? What happens after those first 2 messages? So this is like an outreach thing. You know what I mean? So everybody kind of notices this one. This is like the common outreach problem or inbound problem. But somebody reaches out to you, you come back to them with a reply, and then boom, they're done. They don't say anything else, right? That they're dead. And this kind of thing, it happens a lot to a lot of creators and a lot of businesses. And to the creator, it probably feels like nothing was serious, which it happens. But to them, it was they were serious about whatever they were saying. Usually, it's about purchasing something. But what happens is, within the time that you replied and they sent that message, something changed, where they just didn't do anything. They just said, "Oh, I don't want to do it actually." So, it's I want to be kind of careful and a little bit more sensitive with this one here, because this is the part where I see a lot of things go wrong by the creators and people who, do well. They try really, really hard. I think what needs to be done is, it's it's an instinctive thing to kind of push things along. And that's what everybody tells you to do. But I think what you should do is, you don't want these conversations to sound like a business conversation. Not at first. Because the minute people DM you and they already feel like they have to give you money just by talking to you, that's when you kind of kill this stuff. You know what I mean? You need people who reach out of curiosity, and they're not all of them are pre-sold. Some you will get that once you get larger, but at the beginning, not everybody's going to be pre-sold. So that's a big issue. When you're curious but somebody tries to sell you on something instantly, you just feel like, oh, like, why? I don't even want to talk to you anymore. They just leave you alone. They don't even type to you anymore. Like, they just don't want to talk to you at all, because nobody likes to be sold to. They like to talk themselves into things. That's how you need to sell products to people. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. So, section 5, stage 5 is, how do the people decide? So, notice what counts as, like, as a decision of working here. So, like, look at the share of genuine conversations reaching a yes or a clean no. If you get a clean no, that's not bad. That you're still getting a decision. You know what I mean? But what you don't want out of this, when you're in a close with someone, when you're gonna close, is, people fading off. People just kind of, they don't have it in them to give you a clean no. That's the problem. I would rather be told no outright than someone saying I need to think about it. You know what I mean? So things like that is so awful. People are asking you a bunch of questions. The entire conversation is going really well, but as soon as, the question of price comes up, everything, the entire atmosphere shifts of the conversation. You know what I mean? I'm sure somebody's understood that once or twice before. So I'm going to just say two things about that, and then we're going to go on. This stage is probably not actually the hardest thing to get over. Like, this is probably the stage where things can flow easily, depending on everything else before that I just spoke about. Firstly is, you hear all these objections and all this stuff, right? And nobody ever says what's actually on their mind that's preventing them from buying. It's not always about the money. For some people it is the money. They genuinely cannot afford it. And that's okay. We've all been there. It's never bad to be like, "Oh, I don't have the money." But for the people that have the money, who say, "I need to think about it," it's a confidence problem. If they don't have any confidence in themselves that they can take on what you're offering them and then actually do it and succeed with it, then that's the main thing that's going wrong here. It's not usually, there's always an underlying reason. And secondly is where it is the money, this is where it is the actual money. This is real money coming out of people's bank accounts. And I think a good way to handle that type of objection is, if you really want to work with that person, just drop the price. Because if it's not even that you've saved the deal. Like, technically, yes, you did. But what you've done is shown that person that you are human, and that the number isn't just, it's like a hard price. If you have it negotiable as a price, more and more people will want to work with you, because more and more people will find out that you have flexibility in whatever it is you offer. And that kind of thing travels. It's the the age old lesson of, people talk, and that's important. So yeah, we're gonna be done with this one. That's everything I kind of have to say about that section. Of course, that's everything I have to say. Everything that we just talked about kind of talks a little bit about how the root of the problem, the close, and getting the money from people, that like collecting your money, is actually a problem that starts usually at the top pieces. These main two things are the main killer of these two. This is just in the middle. This is where people choose whether or not they want to be a buyer, but this is where people find out if they actually like your stuff. The reach part is where people, it's like a discovery phase. The talk and close, that's where people really are already sold. Those two parts right there, truthfully, is where you already have a secured buy. Like close, are people deciding anything? Do they actually want to be? Do they actually want to pay you the money? Talking, like, does the conversation that you have survive with these people? Do they continue talking to you, or do they just stop talking right after they reach out? Turning, the turn, do they do anything? Are they turning into a follower? Are they turning into a buyer? Holding, are they staying? Are they holding on to your content? Are they staying on your account? Do they actually enjoy the stuff you're showing? And are they staying for it? The reach. Do these people even discover you? All right, so this diagram that you guys see here. It is related to the previous section that I just talked about. If you keep one thing from this video, I would hope it's this. Like, you could skip the other part, but this part is very, very important as far as kind of summarizing what we spoke about. When you fix something that's, upstream, something that comes in the funnel, think of a funnel, it's a funnel. It's like a triangle, right? If you fix something up here, the stuff down here in the middle, it's all going to suck. And that's intentional. That's normal. That's what happens. So say the real problem was like a reach problem, right? You might have good engagement, like you'll get a lot of likes and comments, but it's all the same people and not many shares, right? But when you fix it with the proper system. Now you're getting 5 times more people who are viewing your stuff. So you went from, say you had 5,000 followers and you got 4,000, 5,000 views. Now you have 20,000 people viewing your stuff, but they don't know you. They're strangers, right? That's okay. They don't know you. You might get less engagement. Your conversion rate might drop, and all these things, right? And your dashboard's gonna, if you have a dashboard, all these things are gonna go bad on like YouTube and Instagram, right? All these things go low. That's okay, right? That happens. It's not essentially, that's not failure. It's just kind of a work in progress fix that you're seeing from the inside. The system doesn't know your intention. The analytics won't know what you're trying to do, which is where it leads to this part right here. Those 3 little red bars, even this gray bar right here, is kind of where people quit. So month 1 up to month 12, these first 3 months, I don't know why I put 8 weeks here. I don't know how to count. But these like first 3 months, right? That is kind of where people give up. And that's okay. You're allowed to give up sometimes. But if you actually want it to work, you have to be able to get past what I said earlier, these first 3 months. Cuz it's not going to look good. But this is, you could see it as because you're in a fixing stage. You're fixing everything. You're repairing all these problems that you had. It's not even because what you do is wrong, right? That's where almost everybody stops. And it's not because what they thought was wrong, not because their strategist was wrong. It's just a working fix in progress from the analytics side of things. The graph hasn't turned at all. It won't turn in that point, in that time period yet. Just watch the raw count of that stage's own outcome. Ignore the ratios that come after it that we spoke about earlier. While you're doing that, while you're in the red, that will mess up your psychology. It'll ruin your drive and motivation. They'll spike after that. You'll see it spike. People who quit after a month, a couple weeks to a month, even 2 months, before they figured out that everything was going well. That's usually why. When they fix things, they don't give it time to fix itself after. The analytics won't show that until everything starts working. It's a snowballing effect. Okay, so last thing, really quick, before I'm done, this is so you know what this map is actually for. So none of these stages can actually be skipped. This is not where you want to skip things. And none of them can be bought either. Each one has to be produced by the ones before it. And that's kind of what you saw in the previous stage, that compounding graph. That's how this compounds, this feedback loop. A stalled business is not actually a broken business. It's just one stage inside of this loop that's messed up. Not the entire thing might not be broken. It could be the trustworthiness is broken. But these all work. I'll talk about myself in relation to everything I just showed you. This was a pretty unorthodox video for me. It was a lot different than what I'm used to, but that's okay. That's what happens when you do something new. You have to get used to it. So please, I apologize for any stutteriness, and if I didn't explain things well, that's my fault. But I want to talk about this entire thing that I just showed you against myself. So for me, obviously, my problem right now is the reach phase. I know you didn't really come here looking for me, and that's okay. It's an early channel, and a lot of what I'm posting is pretty much the same people. You know what I mean? It reaches the same people. It's okay. It still tells me something though. It tells you what not. It tells me what not to do, and that I don't need a better offer. I don't even have an offer technically yet, but I don't need to do anything crazy. I just need more people to see what I'm doing. So that's kind of what I'm working on. I'm only worried right now about the reach. That's all I care about. The single most useful thing that I can get is honestly a subscription, to be honest. So that's the most important thing for me right now, is just getting more strangers to see me, be like, yeah, I kind of like what this guy talks about. I'll stay. Because that's the only thing I'm really stuck on, you know? You know a little bit enough about me now to check if that's true. You'll notice I didn't actually tell you how to fix any of this. That's kind of intentional. I don't I'm not trying to be weird or cagey about anything. Fixing a problem for you without even knowing the problem, it's just not helpful. So if I handed you all the fixes in the world, but you don't know which one actually needs fixing, it wouldn't help. What you should do is find your stage. Find where you're stuck at. Look at your own page, look at your own content, and that's kind of what I do. I might be leaving the board in the description. I'll leave my Instagram down below as well. But yeah, all of your operations, and make sure that whatever you're gonna fix is the right thing. Don't change something if it ain't broke. You know what I mean? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So you have to find what's actually broken. That's kind of everything I have to show you guys today. Yeah, guys. So that's kind of all I have for today. I know this is a little bit of a different video. I might be doing more stuff like this. I might be transitioning the content to be more focused around this stuff, because that's kind of what I want to do. I really enjoy doing this stuff. It makes sense to me. Make sure you like, subscribe. I'll take any critique. But yeah, peace.